Today, Monday, December 16th, it's day 25 of our challenge. We are very happy because the challenge is progressing towards its goal of achieving 400% profit. We have applied 3 different paths to professionally manage sports betting, and as you can see in each one, we have achieved positive results. Remember, with an initial balance of 234,043 units, to complete the challenge, we need to achieve profits of over 936,172 units. Here's something important to share. Those who watched videos 1, 2, and 3 might have noticed a change of plans. Initially, as I mentioned in those videos, the original idea was to make thousands of bets using the Emperor method and the 3-level method to complete the challenge. However, reality hit us. Betting with small amounts meant creating videos that could last 3 to 4 hours to present the bets and then the results. One of the biggest challenges was that we wouldn't be able to keep the audience's interest because those videos would be too long and boring. That's when we decided to introduce the high spread total approach, where large amounts are used, starting with 1,000 units, and that solved the issue of long videos. With that clarified, let's continue. Today, we're going to continue showing the adapts generated in the 2024 to 2025 season using the cont block entry. We clarify that we will only show closed adapts, whether they were won or lost, so we will not show partial results while they are still open. But first, let's present a recap of the most important segments from the Day 1 video, where we describe the procedures for applying the cont block entry. ADAPT is the abbreviation of the initials in Spanish of professionally managed sports betting. According to its concept, a professionally managed sports bet, or ADAPT, it is a type of combined bet linked to a rigorously tested selection method to which you apply knowledge, techniques, tools, and where you only need to get it right. One of the plays to win the bet. These are the parts that make up an ADAPT, and they must be applied in an integrated manner. I am referring to the knowledge, techniques, and tools. First, we are going to link it to the Emperor's method, and subsequently to the 3-level method. The professional management of sports betting. It can be linked to any method. The only requirement is that this method has been rigorously tested beforehand to confirm that it works. Our promise is that you will discover how to earn more than 400% each year, without relying on luck and without being affected by volatility in sports betting. So the name of the first entry is cont block. This entry will apply exclusively when continuous streaks of 5 positions are created, only in the handicap betting or ATS mode, and only in the leagues of the sports where it is played: basketball, American football, and soccer. Now, before making our first play, we're going to present a map that serves as a guide when the entry cont block is being applied. The goal is to provide a step-by-step description to show how simple the process is. The first thing we want to make clear is that we are making an ADAPT linked to the Emperor's method, which means a combined bet, in which we only need to get it right, a play to win. And as we said, we're going to apply it in the leagues where basketball is played, American football, and soccer, and only in the ATS betting format, which is also called handicap or spread. Regarding the process, we can say that it is very simple, since to apply the entry, we just have to wait that a streak is created that has a match of 5 results with consecutive wins, or one that has 5 consecutive losses, to then continue with the process by applying the tool capital distribution table, which has a range of 11 positions, in which we have 11 opportunities to make a play, betting on a result opposite to the growth of the streak. For it to end, the distributive table of capital. It's a very valuable tool and fundamental in this process. During the challenge, we're going to explain how it works and what it's for. But I have to let you know, which has the characteristic of flexibility, because there are two procedures to adapt it to any budget and to adapt it to your budget. You just need to know those two procedures. We're going to test this entry with a block. In the NBA league, in each of the 30 teams that make up this league. In the regular season, 2023 to 2024, which is recent, only 2 matches were created in the past results from the Toronto team, and in both we had positive results. So let's continue with the next one on the list, which is Atlanta. And even though we have positive results so far, we must complete the test because we need to. Seeing is believing, and testing to confirm. In summary, a single match was created. In the past results of the Washington team, also with a positive result. So we continue with Houston, skipping several teams on the list. In adapt number 31, a match was created in the period from the 1st of November to November 12th, where Houston won 5 consecutive games and then continued winning 5 more, which caused that streak to keep growing. And we lost the first 5 plays. But in our 6th opportunity, Houston loses, and we won 877 units. Then he creates his second match, which corresponds to the adapt number 32, in the period from December 2nd to December 13th. During that period, Houston loses 5 consecutive games, and in the first play, they win 12 more, for a subtotal of 889 units. Subsequently, it creates its third and final concordance, which corresponds to the adapt number 33, in the period from January 8th to January 15th. Houston loses 5 consecutive games, and on the third play, they win 57 more, for a total of 934 units. We updated the field of bets placed to 33. The number of bets won is now 32. We add these 934 to the 2,114 accumulated, giving us a total of 3,048 units. In summary, 3 matches were created in the past results of the Houston team, and in all 3, we had positive results. But at this point, many must be asking the same question: why I didn't continue the test in strict sequential order with the next team? Well, there are 2 reasons. The first is that I already tried it, and this is what happened. Positive results were obtained with all 30 teams. I mean, 0 lost bets. And the second reason is that all of you are already trained to do it independently, so that on their own, they can finish trying it out, and thus confirm what I'm saying. Now pay close attention. Just like I did in the NBA, I also tried it in the last regular seasons of the 12 teams that make up the Women's National Basketball Association, and in the more than 300 teams that make up the University Basketball Association. Additionally, they provided all the teams that make up the professional league and university American football. And this is what happened. Positive results were always obtained. I mean, no bets were lost. Remember that the entry with can't block, it does not apply in the leagues where baseball is played or ice hockey, and that it only applies in the leagues where basketball is played, American football and soccer, only in the ATS betting format, which is also called spread or handicap. After watching the key segments from day 1, now we can begin showing the adapts created this 2024 to 2025 season with the can't block entry. First, let's look at those generated in college basketball. The first matchup corresponds to adapt number 46 with the Memphis team. In the period between November 4th and November 25th, Memphis builds a streak of 5 consecutive wins. We must continue the process by applying the capital distribution table tool, which has a range of 11 positions, giving us 11 opportunities to get a win by betting on an opposite result to end the streak. As you can see, as early as the second opportunity, an opposite result occurred, and we won our adapt number 46. Pay attention, the bet was won on the second attempt or position, where 49 units were wagered. The total payout was 93 units, but we need to subtract the 63 units previously wagered. Performing the calculation, we get a profit of 30 units on the bet. Now, the Emperor Method's bets placed field increased by 1, and the bets won field also increased. The total lost bets remain at 0. Finally, we add these 30 units won in the second position to the accumulated profits, giving us a total of 6,602 units. Let's continue with the next one. NJIT builds its first matchup corresponding to adapt number 47. In the period from November 26th to December 7th. During this period, NJIT wins 5 consecutive games, and as early as the first attempt, 12 units are won in the adapt with an opposite result. These 12 units need to be added to the accumulated profits, giving us a total of 6,614 units. Let's move to the next one. Butler builds its first matchup corresponding to adapt number 48. In the period from November 11th to November 29th. During this period, Butler wins 5 consecutive games, and on the first attempt 12 units are won in the adapt with an opposite result. These 12 units are added to the accumulated profits, giving a total of 6,626 units. Now, let's continue. Villanova builds its first matchup corresponding to adapt number 49. In the period from November 19th to December 7th. During this period, Villanova wins 5 consecutive games, and as early as the first attempt, 12 units are won in the adapt with an opposite result. These 12 units are added to the accumulated profits, bringing the total to 6,638 units. Let's proceed with the next one. Northwestern Wildcats builds its first matchup corresponding to adapt number 50. In the period from November 9th to November 22nd. During this period, Northwestern Wildcats loses 5 consecutive games, and on the second attempt, 30 units are won in the adapt with an opposite result. These 30 units are added to the accumulated profits, giving a total of 6,668 units. Next up, Southern California builds its first matchup corresponding to adapt number 51. In the period from November 7th to November 24th. During this period, Southern California loses 5 consecutive games, and on the fourth attempt, 141 units are won in the adapt with an opposite result. These 141 units are added to the accumulated profits, giving a total of 6,809 units. Let's continue with the next one. Delaware Blue creates its first matchup corresponding to adapt number 52 during the period from November 12th to November 30th. During this period, Delaware Blue wins 5 consecutive games, and as early as the second attempt, 30 units are won in the adapt with an opposite result. These 30 units need to be added to the accumulated profits, giving us a total of 6,839 units. Let's move on to the next. Drexel Dragons creates its first matchup corresponding to adapt number 53 during the period from November 9th to November 22nd. During this period, Drexel Dragons wins 5 consecutive games, and on the first attempt, 12 units are won in the adapt with an opposite result. These 12 units are added to the accumulated profits, for a total of 6,851 units. Next up, Northern Kentucky creates its first matchup, corresponding to adapt number 54, in the period from November 4th to November 27th. During this period, Northern Kentucky loses 5 consecutive games, and on the first attempt, 12 units are won in the adapt with an opposite result. These 12 units are added to the accumulated profits, bringing the total to 6,863 units. Let's continue with the next one. Purdue Fort creates its first matchup, corresponding to adapt number 55, during the period from November 8th to November 25th. During this period, Purdue Fort wins 5 consecutive games, and on the first attempt, 12 units are won in the adapt with an opposite result. These 12 units are added to the accumulated profits, giving a total of 6,875 units. Next up, Robert Morris creates its first matchup, corresponding to adapt number 56, in the period from November 7th to November 21st. During this period, Robert Morris wins 5 consecutive games, and on the first attempt, 12 units are won in the adapt with an opposite result. These 12 units are added to the accumulated profits, resulting in 6,887 units. Let's move to the next one. Canisius Golden creates its first matchup, corresponding to adapt number 57, in the period from November 9th to November 19th. During this period, Canisius Golden loses 5 consecutive games, and on the first attempt, 12 units are won in the adapt with an opposite result. These 12 units are added to the accumulated profits, for a total of 6,899 units. Next up, Norfolk State creates its first matchup, corresponding to adapt number 58, in the period from November 16th to December 1st. During this period, Norfolk State wins 5 consecutive games, and on the first attempt, 12 units are won in the adapt with an opposite result. These 12 units are added to the accumulated profits, giving a total of 6,911 units. Let's continue. Colorado State creates its first matchup, corresponding to adapt number 59, in the period from November 8th to November 28th. During this period, Colorado State loses 5 consecutive games, and on the first attempt, 12 units are won in the adapt with an opposite result. These 12 units are added to the accumulated profits, totaling 6,923 units. Moving on to the next one, Tennessee Volunteers creates its first matchup, corresponding to adapt number 60, in the period from November 9th to November 22nd. During this period, Tennessee Volunteers wins 5 consecutive games, and on the third attempt, 57 units are won in the adapt with an opposite result. These 57 units are added to the accumulated profits, bringing the total to 6,980 units. And now the next, Miami Hurricanes creates its first matchup, corresponding to adapt number 61, in the period from November 10th to November 24th. During this period, Miami Hurricanes loses 5 consecutive games, and on the second attempt, 30 units are won in the adapt with an opposite result. These 30 units are added to the accumulated profits, giving us a total of 7,010 units. Let's continue with the next one. North Carolina Tar creates its first matchup, corresponding to adapt number 62, during the period from November 25th to December 7th. During this period, North Carolina Tar loses 5 consecutive games, and on the first attempt, 12 units are won in the adapt with an opposite result. These 12 units are added to the accumulated profits, giving us a total of 7,022 units. Let's move on to the next. Virginia Tech creates its first matchup, corresponding to adapt number 63, during the period from November 8th to November 25th. During this period, Virginia Tech loses 5 consecutive games, and on the third attempt, 57 units are won in the adapt with an opposite result. These 57 units are added to the accumulated profits, bringing the total to 7,079 units. Next up, Wake Forest creates its first matchup, corresponding to adapt number 64, during the period from November 13th to November 28th. During this period, Wake Forest loses 5 consecutive games, and on the first attempt, 12 units are won in the adapt with an opposite result. These 12 units are added to the accumulated profits, giving us a total of 7,091 units. Let's continue with the next one. Duquesne Dukes creates its first matchup, corresponding to adapt number 65, during the period from November 4th to November 24th. During this period, Duquesne Dukes loses 5 consecutive games, and on the second attempt, 30 units are won in the adapt with an opposite result. These 30 units are added to the accumulated profits, for a total of 7,121 units. Next up, Horned Frogs creates its first matchup, corresponding to adapt number 66, during the period from November 8th to November 28th. During this period, Horned Frogs loses 5 consecutive games, and on the second attempt, 30 units are won in the adapt with an opposite result. These 30 units are added to the accumulated profits, giving a total of 7,151 units. Let's continue with the next one. Utah Utes creates its first matchup, corresponding to adapt number 67, during the period from November 4th to November 22nd. During this period, Utah Utes wins 5 consecutive games, and on the second attempt, 30 units are won in the adapt with an opposite result. These 30 units are added to the accumulated profits, giving us a total of 7,181 units. Next up, Cal State Fullerton creates its first matchup, corresponding to adapt number 68, during the period from November 8th to November 22nd. During this period, Cal State Fullerton loses 5 consecutive games, and on the first attempt, 12 units are won in the adapt with an opposite result. These 12 units are added to the accumulated profits, for a total of 7,193 units. Let's move on. Long Beach creates its first matchup, corresponding to adapt number 69, during the period from November 13th to November 25th. During this period, Long Beach loses 5 consecutive games, and on the third attempt, 57 units are won in the adapt with an opposite result. These 57 units are added to the accumulated profits, bringing the total to 7,250 units. Let's continue with the next. Chicago State creates its first matchup, corresponding to adapt number 70, during the period from November 9th to November 22nd. During this period, Chicago State loses 5 consecutive games, and on the second attempt, 30 units are won in the adapt with an opposite result. These 30 units are added to the accumulated profits, giving us a total of 7,280 units. Next up, Mercer Bears creates its first matchup, corresponding to adapt number 71, during the period from November 21st to December 8th. During this period, Mercer Bears wins 5 consecutive games, and on the first attempt, 12 units are won in the adapt with an opposite result. These 12 units are added to the accumulated profits, totaling 7,292 units. Now we update the Emperor Methods bets placed field, which increased by 25. The bets won field also increased, and the total lost bets remain at 0. The total accumulated profits stand at 7,292 units, and that's where we end today's video. A quick reminder, the Christmas and New Year holidays are approaching. That's why we've decided to take a break. This gives us more time to spend with family and prepare to resume betting in January with renewed strength and better opportunities. Enjoy the holidays and get ready for what's coming. And what's coming next, we'll present our last video of the year. In that video, we'll update the pending results for the 3-level method. As you may recall, with this method, we split a total of 300 bets into 3 segments of 100 each. In the first segment, we've already won 32 bets, which were documented and recorded. So in that video, we'll update the results of the 68 bets that remain pending. We're closing a betting cycle for this year. The results for bets in the segments from 100 to 200 and from 200 to 300 will be presented in January. Here we conclude this day of our challenge. Don't miss our upcoming videos, where we will continue showing the results produced by this successful formula for winning.